SaaS Backwards is sponsored by Austin Lawrence Group, specializing in demand gen for SaaS. It sure is noisy. I deleted 100 emails from vendors just this morning. Your buyer has gotten better at ignoring you, and you're gonna need a big idea if you want to cut through all that clutter. Austin Lawrence is just the right agency to help you find it. So if your campaigns are falling on deaf eyeballs, let's talk. Visit austinlawrence.com today and let's build something bigger.
Welcome to the SaaS Backwards podcast, where we reverse engineer the success of fast-growing SaaS firms and explore strategies CMOs and CEOs are using to drive their businesses forward.
Welcome to SaaS Backwards, a podcast that helps SaaS CEOs and CMOs to accelerate growth and enhance profitability. Our guest today is Brian Burns. Brian's the host of two top podcasts, the B2B Revenue Leadership Show and The Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling. His daily LinkedIn videos on better selling are hugely popular, and he offers sales training online and via custom projects. Hey, Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thanks, Kenneth. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And I'd love to have you tell us just a little bit about your background and your company before we get into the topics for the episode.
Sure. I was a career enterprise salesperson, did it for about 25 years, mostly as an individual contributor, got into management, got back into individual contributor, but got to the point where I wanted to work for myself. And as a sales guy, what do? You become a sales trainer. And at the time, it was really before social media took off, 2012. The iPhone was just becoming mainstream. And I've been enjoying it ever since. I find leveraging, making videos, podcasts, written content is a great way of building a market.
Yeah. Hey, and it's an interesting point. Being an effective, successful salesperson is hugely empowering, right? You almost feel like you can do anything. And I had a similar path getting into entrepreneuring here at Austin Lawrence. I was a salesperson at Citicorp, and it imploded after the Latin American debt crisis, the division I was in. And I ended up joining my father in this business like 35 years ago. And, I had no experience in the agency business and just brought in a few clients and, 35 years later, still entrepreneuring. So for those listening who aren't yet on the sales track, it's a career of great empowerment, lifelong learning.
Yeah, it's not easy, but once you get your legs underneath you, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. If you enjoy trying to bring people to a better solution, better answer to their problems, it's a great career, I think, especially in the enterprise side. And that brings me sort of to the first question. A lot of SaaS conversations center on product-led growth and relatively small ARR deals. But how is the enterprise SaaS sale different? And what do maybe new sales leaders and CRO types need to know about that?
Well, when you're selling into the enterprise, and depending on the cost of the product and the impact that it has on the company that you're selling to, a lot of the stuff that you see today ruins it instead of helps it. You have to start a little bit slower. You have to have conversations. You have to build in direction, momentum, and control into your deals. And you have to understand how companies buy, because we're typically talking to end user buyers who have zero economic authority, but have political and some administrative awareness. And what I've seen today is that everyone's just in the cadence, pitch, 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 hound, hound, hound. And if they don't close, then you just move on to the next one. It's not really selling, it's, glorified marketing automation.
Yeah, I mean, the pitch slapping and, the email sequences that, hey, I want to just bring this to the top of your inbox, all that kind of junk.
Bump it up.
Yeah, here's the bump. Here's the bump. In case you didn't ignore it 2 times, here's a third opportunity. But this sale is more complicated, right? And we need to recruit people into a vision for how things could be better. And that's different skill set and a different mindset. And I'm wondering, how you coach not only the salespeople, but their management to kind of penetrate what could be a 5 to 10 person decisioning process?
Yeah. So what I do is I map out how the sale progresses, regardless of what you're selling. You need to get a technical sale where it's the selection of that product to the exclusion of all others, including doing nothing. And then on the other side, you've got a business sale. How do we justify this? How do we explain it to the executives that may never understand what the product or service does? And then how do you keep that deal moving? Too many people today are relying on a champion to do it. But the champion, their heart's in the right place, but they don't know how to do it. And if you have the champion who doesn't know what to do and the sales rep that doesn't know what to do, that's what causes no decision. They're both waiting on each other to kind of help, and they're both kind of checking in on each other, but it's not going anywhere. This is why like 80% goes to no decision.
So the mission really is to arm that champion with the resources and insight from others in the organization as to how to get the budget moving, right?
Yeah, and basically not pigeonhole yourself from what I call going steady. Some people call single-threadedness, getting married to that one person who probably will tell you, don't talk to anyone else, because they kind of want control over the narrative of why they're doing this. But that's usually the death of the deal, not the start of the deal. And unless the salesperson knows how companies buy, how to keep this deal moving, they're really servicing the deal. They're not guiding or selling the deal. They're reacting instead of being proactive about showing people how to get the deal accomplished internally.
So I just want to unpack something you said because it's really important. And in one of your recent videos, you've touched on this. I've always called sales a series of unnatural acts, not unlike the way media training, you watch a senator on TV, they never answer the question they're asked. They answer the question they want to answer. And in sales, we need to be willing to course correct our prospects. We need to be willing to lead them to a conclusion that they might not get to. And that requires us to use powers of persuasion, the way humans process information to our advantage. And I think, is that something you do in your training? Do you work people through that, those sort of unnatural acts?
Yeah, I mean, certainly a company spending money is an unnatural act. Companies are in business to make money, not spend it. I've worked at 12 companies. Not one company told me how to spend their money. My job was to make money for them. So when an employee wants to spend the company's money, it's counterintuitive. They don't know. They weren't trained. Procurement's there to do nothing, essentially, until they have to. And people misguidedly believe that purchasing makes any decision whatsoever. Purchasing does what they're told. They don't go and make selections for the company. And getting an order through a company, having a company change the way they're doing business is an unnatural act. And so much of the complex sale is counterintuitive. You have to be proactive, not reactive. It's up to us to guide, not just react and service the deal. And if we don't do it, the deal stalls, but the client also doesn't feel like telling us the truth because they know if they tell us the truth, we're going to end run them or give up on them and not help them. So they kind of tell us the almost truth. Oh, it's in my manager's hands. It's in procurement. How many times did you hear that when you're in sales? It's not in procurement. It's in your inbox. You haven't even sent it to anybody. And I mean, today, the complex sale is really not taught. And there's so few people that understand it. So everyone's trying to make up for it in volume. Let's have more pipeline. Let's have more deals that won't close in our forecast. That's the answer. And just by sheer luck or pure numbers, something will happen.
Well, I want to jump to that topic about numbers, because in one of your recent videos, you were talking about, measuring things that really don't matter. Like how many calls did you make? How many emails did you send? How many meetings have you had? All those things. And you correctly pointed it to the if we can't measure it, we can't manage it kind of mindset. And we've been trying to tell our clients that we want to measure different things. And they're a little squishier, like how many meaningful conversations have we helped create? Do you have sort of squishy things you like to measure versus these hard-edged things that don't matter as much?
Well, do you care if you measure it, right? Do you measure what your kids do? All you care about is, are they healthy? Are they happy? Are they doing well in school? Are they well adjusted? What's the KPI for that? Everybody wants to measure something because they don't want to talk to people anymore. They want to put it into a graph and a pie chart so that they don't have to deal with anyone. And my whole career, people were trying to, what are your metrics? How many calls per week? I could care less. I don't get paid that way. I get paid on outcomes. And I ask people in my course, how well are you using your time? Take the number of deals and the where you got paid and how much time did it take to close those deals. All the other stuff was discretionary. And what I heard was less than 20%, closer to 10% of their year was spent on the things that got paid for. So 90%, now granted, you'd need to work on a lot of stuff to get those things, but does it really matter how many calls or emails did you send?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think those hard edge numbers aren't important to me either. We come from the marketing side, right? That's where
Which is different. It's very different.
Yeah, but like I don't want to be delivering MQLs or SQLs. That's to me, it's the danger zone, right? That's where we're measuring the inputs instead of the
evidence of work.
Exactly. But I do want to help sales to have conversations that they believe will lead to a deal. And that's a really squishy thing, right? There's no checkbox in my CRM for that. But I'm quoting you, I'm sorry. But I mean, I want to be able to, as a marketing person commanding a budget, right? Being responsible for a budget, I want to show that I'm doing something that salespeople can use, as opposed to will be perturbed by because it's another failed marketing push. So I'm just wondering if maybe that's the friction point I wanted to talk to you about, is that place between sales and marketing where we're trying to propel momentum for you.
Well, I'm a marketer now as well as a sales trainer. That's how we met, was through my marketing, not through my sales training. So, I have a goal of doing 20 videos a month. I try and make them all A's. There's some B's and C's in there too. And is that a bad metric? What keeps me to it is that I pay to have 20 videos, cleaned up, edited, put the subtitles in. So I keep that in mind. I don't want to waste that money. I look at the number of followers I get per day versus my competition. I look at how my posts do. And the better the video, the better the posts do. So marketing, it's very different. And I think it's okay to count those things, focusing on quality over quantity and making sure it's getting the outcome that you want. The outcome I want is salespeople to learn that there is a better, smarter way of selling instead of hitting their cadence button all day and hoping. Understand how strangers want to be approached instead of pitched and bumped. They want to converse. They want to talk about themselves, not us, not the product, not the company, not the next step, not the process.
Yeah,
I understand that, but I'm still a marketer.
Let's talk about conversation and conversations and trust. I think these are kind of related topics, but am I right in that you don't feel the phone is dead at all here, right, in sales?
Well,
where do you think
I think people confuse channel with skill. I use email, I use social, I use the phone. I don't cold call, I don't cold pitch, I don't pitch slap. That doesn't mean I don't use the channel. Yet I can get a conversation started with a stranger in less than 3 days. I don't talk about me, I don't talk about what I do, and I don't ask for anything. One of the counterintuitive things about sales is that it's a giving profession, not a taking profession. And to give without getting is counterintuitive.
Yeah, I remember a sales training that was the give to get, right? In that dialogue thing, if I give you this, now I'm going to ask you a question.
It's a negotiation technique, but I'm sure you've gone to a dinner party, and if you brought the best dessert, you're pretty popular, right? It's not magic. It's innate in us, but they're giving us dinner, right? So it's kind of a little different. Why were the Hare Krishners successful for so long? They gave a flower first, which ignited the law of reciprocation. No one wanted that daisy. No one asked for it, but we felt obligated to listen to their story after we received it.
Yeah, it's totally true. You know, in our outbound motion, it's all give. Our outbound motion is some free insight. Hey, we see this happening. Here's a thought about it. If you'd love to talk deeper, you know, we have a free thing that we'd put you through. And we're finding the response, even at the C-suite, CEOs, CMOs, pretty good. You know, a 10% or more response rate to, hey, I'd like to have a conversation about that. You know, if I can have an outbound motion where 1 out of 10 people want to engage further, I'm pretty happy about that. So totally agree. So you think the phone still is a way to approach people and open those conversations up?
Not as a first step, unless it's the only choice you have. Not everybody's on the internet. A lot of people still don't have company emails in some cases. So phone's the only thing, or drop by. I teach a course on how to start a conversation, get a meeting. And I've done it live in the course while everyone's sitting there. I go, give me the CEO of the target company you want to talk to. I bring up his profile. I go, boom. I show them exactly how I get connected to them. If they're active on LinkedIn, the connection rate's well over 80%. I got the CEO of Delta Airlines. He put out a post about a meal service change. And I put a comment on that post congratulating him on it. And as a Delta flyer, I look forward to having it. He thanked me. I connected with him. I asked him a question. We talked back and forth for 3 days. And then he gave me the magic response. How can I help you? And I told him.
That stuff's so great. That's awesome.
And it's an art. It's something that no one teaches anymore because this is who I am. This is what we do. This is why people use us. Would Thursday or Friday be better to talk about it? Well, neither would be any good because I have no idea what you're talking about and I don't care. That's how people are not sitting around waiting for a pitch. And the first stage of acceptance, of change, is not acceptance, it's denial. So when you cold pitch people, the innate reaction is not to read it and relate to it, it's to deny the need for it. So you're asking for rejection, not breaking through it.
So we're fans of the challenger sale, challenger customer stuff, and actually had Brent Adamson on the podcast, I don't know, I guess about 2 months ago. And so this is where you can start using content in thoughtful, deeply researched, meaningful content to help break through that denial, right? So we can ask people if they have these kinds of things going on in their business, and if so, here's a resource that we can offer up. Is that a tool you guys use with your clients?
You know, there's a catch-22 with insight selling. You're under the assumption that you know something that they don't know, but you don't know what they know. So how do you know they don't know it? So it's a little arrogant to assume that you know something that they don't. I'd rather start where people are and build up for them. Tell them something about themselves that they want to hear. It's a give. But people, how do I do that? People in sales tell me this, how do I do that? They can't do it because they're not thinking about them. They're thinking about themselves. And when you're focused on yourself, you'll never understand sales, or at least not cold prospecting.
Yeah, and we're talking about still enterprise selling here, right? So
yes,
a lot of times I've heard people say, well, we know everybody we need to know. And yet a lot of this conversation is about talking to people we don't know yet. And what's your take on that? I mean, do we know everybody we need to know, or
of course not?
Thank you.
How big is your TAM? You know everybody they know you and you know them. I mean, that's impossible. You know, there's 8 million B2B salespeople in the world that I want to train. I don't know 1/100th of them. Maybe 1% knows me, but I don't know them. And if you're selling enterprise, you want to talk to the right person, not the person who reads your ad or sees your ad or converts on your webinar to get the Apple Watch. You want to talk to the person who has the problem that you solve. You want to talk to them about that problem. You want to build rapport and trust with them so that they'll start this journey with you and want to talk to you and not just talk to you when they have to talk to you. See, today it's all about have to instead of want to. I have to talk to a rep to see a demo. I have to talk to a rep to get pricing. That's have to. You want them to want to talk to you. It's a very different skill. That's what a relationship is. In sales, people think a relationship is I have their contact info. That's not a relationship. That's a contact. A relationship's when they want to talk with you, even when it's not about something that they need, something that they're curious about, something that they have to take action on. They enjoy talking to you because you have some expertise, some vantage point that they're interested in.
This is one of those conversations that's sort of blowing my mind a little bit because we operate in a world where everybody wants to measure everything, topic we touched on just a bit ago, and yet none of these things are measurable, right?
Right.
I mean, not a thing you espouse as important is truly measurable in a finite way, right? It's not scientific, it's artistic.
The process is kind of science, but how you do it is more art. Let me give you an example. Every great chef in the world has a cookbook. Now, why on earth would a great chef share his recipes or her recipes with the world for what, $40? A lifetime of experience and skill for $40? Why? Because it's more than chemistry. There's a certain thing to it that is art. It's not just the ingredients or the process or the utensils. It's the magic that the chef pulls together. That's what sales is. Every comedian has written their book, some joke books, some story books. Yet when they make a release on YouTube, every other comedian can write down their jokes and deliver them at no cost. Yet I can't do Chris Rock. I love Chris Rock. I tried. No one laughed. There's an art. How well you do it, not just that you can do it.
So how does a sales manager build those skills in his team or her team and protect and motivate those people? How do they protect them from, the measurement police who are going to want to come in and measure things that we've now sort of said are probably not all that measurable? How do we do that as managers, as leaders?
You hire people based off of faith, trust, and credentials, not just credentials. And if that leader says, look, do you want me to increase revenue or decrease it? And this is my line in all my videos to sales leaders. Your job is to increase revenue. Anyone can decrease it. And what motivates people? Autonomy, creativity, mastery, money. Being busy sending a bunch of emails to a bunch of complete strangers that's ineffective is reducing my income, which is reducing the revenue for the company. The objective is to sell more, not appear to be selling more. The perception has overtaken the outcome. It's counterintuitive. It's intuitive to count everything, but you can't manage a great chef like McDonald's. You'll end up with hamburger.
Yeah, we don't want to count how many onions per hour the chef dices, right? That's not.
It's too thin. It's too thick. Not fast enough. Chop, chop.
Yeah, not going to do it. So I want to ask you a couple more questions. I want to make sure we land right around the half hour on the episode. So I want to ask you, we often work with younger companies, but they're doing an enterprise sale. And they're moving from founder-led sales, the founder doing everything, to now they need to build a team. And when they bring that first sales leader in, what's the balance between Rolodex and sales skills? And a lot of times these are finite markets, the TAM is not enormous. But, would you recommend that we're hiring on Rolodex for that first big sales position or sales skills, or what's the balance there?
I've never found the Rolodex thing to really transfer that well. They'll get a couple of deals, but then what do? And you don't want to sell purely on relationship because an executive has to pay for it and they're going to test it. And even if it's your brother, they're not going to buy it. It's enterprise. It's not mom and pop. So, when you're moving, and I've got a couple of clients that are doing this from founder-based, I insist that they document the process because their job is going to be to teach the new person the process and why the process is the way it is. How do you get the next meeting? How do you justify it? How do you keep it from stalling? How do you handle price? How do you handle these simple obstacles that happen? Because the new person's going to run right into each of those traps.
Absolutely. So I totally agree with you. I think I've seen CEOs go through multiple sales leaders with disappointment
Oh,
after disappointment because they hire them on the Rolodex and they don't prepare them. And those folks don't know the product well enough. They know the category, but they're not product expert. So they can't help new people that they meet to
right.
understand what
They're
might.
basing it off of personality instead of skill set.
Totally agree. And last question, I touched on it before, but I want to sort of land on it for my marketing listeners. What's your take on marketing's work in demand generation, that thought leadership, and the role it plays in these longer term revenue generation situations?
Well, for as
You
hard
already
as
swatted it away. I'm sorry, you already swatted it away once on the idea of insight-led sales. But I'm curious if there is a way that marketing can really help you in
of
sales.
course, yeah, yeah, because I've done traditional marketing, by Google ads, YouTube ads, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook ads, and people click on them. Do they buy? I think what people have to do is understand how hard B2B sales is today. And what are you trying to do? How hard is it to communicate and talk about the problem you solve? Is the problem even understood? Too many people are marketing the company or the product, not the problem. Talk about the problem. And thought leadership, yes, but if you're going to try and become very popular very fast, that today doesn't work. You have to connect yourself with someone who already has that audience. Move the money from Facebook ads to helping them help you because they have the audience and they're more than happy to help, but they want something in return as well. And I see 100 CEOs today trying to become thought leaders. And what they're putting out is pretty good, but it's going to take too long. So that, they could put ad dollars to promote that, but usually they're talking about the product or the category and not the problem.
So you're almost arguing for the influencer sale, like going back to when we would get a Gartner or Forrester analyst and put them out in front of an audience, right? And pay them territory.
Well, that's why those companies exist, right? And, when I got into sales, there was typically one trade show a year and there was one industry magazine. So you put an ad in the industry magazine and you went to the trade show. That's all you could really do in marketing. And you change the ad every now and then. And it sometimes worked and it was enough. But today, look at all the channels. You got to figure out where your audience is. How do they view the problem today? How do you turn it into something that's funny, engaging, something that they want to interact with?
There's a little more art, right? So now we're really pushing the pendulum toward the art. And in fact, in our agency, we're looking at the creative side as being so important because you have to get people to want to pay attention to what you made. That's probably a great place to land our episode. I think the big takeaways here are creativity, empathy, making it a human scale, human centric process is really what we're both advocating for in terms of our marketing and sales.
Yeah, the empathy, not just feeling what they're going through, but thinking like them.
That's great.
Very different or very much difficult, much more difficult.
Yeah. Hey, if people want to learn more about you and your company, Brian, how do they do that?
I can be found at B2B, the letter B, the numeral 2, the letter B, and then revenue.com, or just search for Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn.
That's great. And definitely follow Brian for that daily dose of inspiration. I love those videos. And if you want to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn/in/Ken Lempit. And if you haven't subscribed to the SaaS Backwards podcast, please do so wherever podcasts are distributed. Brian G. Burns, B2BRevenue.com. Thank you so much for being on SaaS Backwards.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks for listening to the SaaS Backwards podcast, brought to you by Austin Lawrence Group. We're a growth marketing agency that helps SaaS firms reduce churn, accelerate sales, and generate demand. Learn more about us at www.austinlawrence.com. You can email Ken Lempit at kl@austinlawrence.com about any SaaS marketing or customer retention subject. We hope you'll subscribe, and thanks again for listening.